Yeah. So you have to essentially tabulate the phi and psi angles which you have obtained by your modeling or by your calculations over 98 alpha carbon atoms. Is it not? So what do you get now? What do you get now? Basically, you get a database of what? You get a database of psi and phi angles. So this database can be now presented in the form of a two-dimensional graph. Two-dimensional graph. So if you do this, in principle, you have constructed a Ramachandran plot, basically. So, but today, after some about 55 years of Ramachandran plots discovery, we are discussing this. But it was the genius of Professor Ramachandran who did this first, who discovered this first. So, in fact, he was essentially a crystallographer, physicist, and a crystallographer. One of the very proud scientists the Indian soil has produced. Utterly Indian scientist, fully Indian scientist, G.N. Ramachandran. His full name is Gopala Sundaram Narayana Ramachandran, who is famously called G.N. Ramachandran. He was from Tamil Nadu. In fact, if I have to just give a very brief account of his educational life, he obtained his BSc in a city in Tamil Nadu, and then immediately moved on to IAS. In fact, there is one surprise element here. When he came to IISc, he joined the electrical engineering department first, but quickly he realized that his interest was more in physics, and then he moved on to the department of physics and studied under none other than the Nobel laureate C.V. Raman there. Okay, why is this a bit interesting? What is the today's trend? Not just today's, it's been a trend since past 25-30 years, particularly in Bangalore, such Bangalore based urban regions, that the students are moving from basic science like physics, chemistry, maths, biology to engineering. But about 80 years back, it was a reverse. G.N. Ramachandran did in a reverse. He moved from engineering to a basic science field, but did achieve a lot of things. So, I mean, if I had to just take a bit deviation from my lecture and tell that the students who are studying basic sciences should take inspirations from such personality and not get disheartened that engineering and medical are very illustrious fields, whereas basic science is not like that. It's not that. Wherever you are, you just have to apply yourself, dedicate, and still you can do a lot of things. So G.N. Ramachandran did. So he obtained his uh, master's in physics, studying under Professor C.V. Raman. Then moved abroad, and he has devised methods in crystallography also, which have been found very important applications. But those contributions are a bit sober. Rather, the most obvious conspicuous contribution of G.N. Ramachandran are two things. One thing is the discovery of the triple helix structure of collagen. In fact, when he and his co-workers published this paper, Collagen Structure in Nature, immediately the Western world, Western scientists started looking towards Madras, and they were further famously, or not famously, with affectionately referred to as Madras groups, further communications by the Western scientists. Linus Pauling, Crick, Watson, such people were really admirers of the work of G.N. Ramachandran. Okay. In fact, it is told that if somebody very deserving who has missed a Nobel Prize from India, it is G.N. Ramachandran. He was nominated to the Nobel Prize several times for his work. But Linus Pauling himself, Linus Pauling is not just a scientist, he's a phenomenon in chemistry, Linus Pauling himself. So he has remarked that if there is anyone with a caliber of holding a Nobel Prize, it should be G.N. Ramachandran. So these are the credits. to Ramachandran. Okay, anyways, I'll just move on to his contributions. We look how this Ramachandran plot enables us to understand peptide conformations. By the way, uh, there is a capping, there is a caveat. What is it? That the protein structure comes in hierarchies. As I told, the primary structure, we have discussed this in our previous class, and the secondary structure, which we are going to discuss now. But a structure doesn't end there. It further accommodates into tertiary structures, and sometimes when there are polymers, oligomers of peptide chains, quaternary structures. So all the helix and beta sheets, what we will be speaking of, are not, barring few proteins and peptides. Please remember this. The secondary structures, what we speak of henceforth, are not the entire structures of the protein. Please remember this. Instead, they are partial structures in the bigger arena of a tertiary structure. So you can look at a tertiary structure depicted here, and you see an helix is a part of a bigger tertiary structure. There can be some beta sheet which is a part of a structure, a beta turn which is a part of a structure, loop which is a part of a structure. So Ramachandran plot doesn't give us give us the tertiary structures knowledge. Rather, it gives only the secondary structures knowledge. But anyways, see, this we can't call as a limitation of Ramachandran plot, though some claim still a limitation of Ramachandran. It is purely a predictor of secondary structure. Proteins have different hierarchies. Maybe after quaternary structure, some other day, one more in future, someone can discover one more hierarchy in the structure. But Ramachandran plot predicts only the secondary structure. It is still fine, even if you predict secondary structures and try to assemble them into a meaningful tertiary structure, it is possible. But as we can tell that tertiary structures can be visualized now as subunits of secondary structures joined by some things called turns or sometimes random coils, such things. Okay, fine. So this is what happens. So simply you can put, I mean, this is not essentially a Ramachandran, this is not a Ramachandran plot at all. I've just given you a graph of psi versus phi angles. See, this is the phi and this is psi. Go on plotting, like I told, every alpha carbon atom, you take the psi angle, that is between carbon and carbon, phi angle, that is between carbon and nitrogen, and then plot it. You see there are dots at different regions of this graph. Is it not? Different regions of this graph. So what's the point? What's the point? That if I provide a graph like this and ask you for some interpretation, what would be your interpretation? Someone? Anybody can answer? What would be your interpretation? There can be many interpretations, but outright, most obvious interpretation is what? Students can answer this question. Okay. Fine. I mean, yesterday I saw you sending chats. Anyways, okay. Let me go further in the explanation and then take up the interaction later. So what would be the obvious thing which is coming out from this? That now let us imagine that I have plotted this for a polypeptide. I see some straightforward observations. I see some combinations of phi and psi angles are more probable. Is it not? You see a small region here. Maybe, for example, psi is equal to about, this is the positive quadrant of psi, right? So psi is equal to about plus 40 degree and phi is about minus 40 degree range. You see the cluster of dots And what does every dot represent here? Okay, at least you answered this question. What does every dot represent in this graph? What does every dot represent? Uh, okay, this is any graph, yeah. Simple. Forget chemistry now, or forget conformations. You just think it as a graph in your general studies, general mathematics. What is a graph? A point in graph represents what? A set of value of x and y axis, right? Is it not? So every dot represents a set of psi and phi value. Is it not? Okay, I'm now getting your answers. Okay, chat box. Our speaker would be happy to answer. Yes, okay, okay, sir. Yeah, I'm happy to answer the questions. Fine. I am happy to answer the questions. I am happy to get the answers from you also. I'm happier, in fact, if I get answers from you. I give questions and you answer them at the end at least. So every dot represents a psi phi combination. What would be the value of this psi? For example, plus 30, and on phi axis it is about plus 20. So that's the value of this. Go on plotting the phi psi combinations. So now on, we will take that extra step. What is that? Instead of just telling a phi value and psi value independently, separately, rather we will combine them, because when you do a torsion angle change over an alpha carbon atom, first you should rotate the peptide bond on one side of the carbon atom, alpha carbon atom. Go on seeing what are the conformations allowed, and then you should rotate the peptide bond on the other side of the alpha carbon atom, and then go on seeing what are the conformations allowed. So it is like now, it is almost like, if I have to give this analogy, it is almost like decoding a number lock. Fine, decoding a number lock. So how do you do this? Now let us imagine that the number lock has only two keys. So one circle goes from 0 to 9, the other circle goes from 0 to, there are only two circles in your number lock. So let us imagine one circle to be your psi, the other circle to be your phi. Okay, so what happens? Any number lock opens when you get the correct combination of these two circles. Say I'm giving you a very simple number lock. Usually number locks comes with 4 digits, 5 digits, like that, not more than 5 digits. Then it becomes damn difficult to remember the code and do the mechanic work. So 2 digits. Now let us take the example of 2 digits. So what happens now? The number lock opens with the correct combination of 2 digits. Is it not? Almost a similar analogy you extrapolate. What is it? What is that meant by opening of the number lock here? So the number lock opens means for that particular combination of psi and phi, the peptide in that part, I'm not telling the entire peptide in that part. Which part? The part you have chosen, the C alpha. For example, let me tell the 79th amino acid. So peptide at 79th amino acid, for that combination of psi and phi, opens. What do we mean by opens here? Adopts the least energy conformation. So that becomes conformationally favored, conformationally allowed. Now you do this number lock exercise. And what is that number lock? Psi and phi. Number lock exercise over all C alphas, barring N terminal amino acid and C terminal amino acid. And then write down all combinations. At the second amino acid, what is the combination that worked? Working means what? Which gave me stable conformation, most stable conformation. Third amino acid, what is the combination? Go on doing like that and plot it. So that is your Ramachandran plot usage. Okay, so now fine. This is what the most obvious conclusion, which I was expecting anyways. Please notice that All these things we have explained. Of course, in all my discussions, I have not mentioned about this omega angle. I was concentrating only on phi and psi. Omega is nothing but the peptide bond torsion angle, which is not flexible, which can adopt only two values, 0 degree and 180 degree. When is it 0 degree? When the peptide bond is cis. When is it 180 degree? When the peptide bond is trans. Anyways, so a question here. What is the geometry of the peptide bond? Is it cis or trans in the naturally occurring peptides? What is the geometry? Cis or trans? I mean, easy question. Yeah, there are only two options. Not like your CET with 4 options. 2 options, cis or trans. Yeah, getting the answers. Trans. Good. Anil Kumar says trans. Very good. Yeah. Yes. Trans. Trans is the geometry of a peptide bond. So when I am changing all these psi and psi values, it is by default I am maintaining omega angle at 180 degrees because I am analyzing natural occurring peptides, which always adopt a trans conform. Trans, please here. So when I tell trans conformation, I am not right. I should tell trans configuration. And this is cis configurations, right? Because those are not conformations. You cannot convert cis and trans compounds just by rotations, right? You have to break the bond and reform it. That's why they become configurations. So trans configuration and different conformations according to the allowed values of psi and phi. So this is important. Only 10% of phi and psi combinations are generally allowed, are generally seen in proteins. And as I told you, this was first noticed by G.N. Ramachandran. Okay. So, anyways, okay, fine. Now, fine. Now, this is more extended version of the Ramachandran plot. You can see here, almost this quadrant is empty. Almost this quadrant is empty. Whereas, which quadrant is mostly filled? This one. Is it not? So, with the positive phi angles and negative psi angles. So, that is mostly filled. Yeah, just let me, okay, put a better diagram of this. Okay. Fine. Anyways, so please look at this diagram. This is also one more depiction of Ramachandran plot. So what are these areas? These areas are nothing but simply collection of dots. So if all those dots are merged into an area, it looks like this. Fine. Basically, a Ramachandran plot is collection of dots. There is no doubt in that. But when the dots become crowded, overlapping, you can see a plane out of it, right? So that is the plane or the areas what we have plotted here. You see, there are areas which are called core areas. I mean, this is the feature of a Ramachandran plot. I'm just explaining. Core areas, core area, and then allowed areas, and all these white are forbidden areas. So, in fact, most of the area, large area in the Ramachandran plot is forbidden. Actually forbidden. So the core areas are the ones in which fall the combinations of psi and phi, which are conformationally allowed. So these core areas occupy how much of the graph? How much of the graph? Maybe 10% of the graph? Yes, only 10% of the graph these core areas occupy. So that means what? Only 10% of the combinations of psi and phi are actually allowed in all naturally occurring products. All naturally occurring products. But what are these allowed regions then? Okay, now here comes the concept of modeling. In fact, How did Ramachandran build a Ramachandran plot? Basically, he used computer modeling, and this computer modeling, he in fact developed algorithms to arrive at this. And please remember, you know, the first email in India was sent in 1980, 1980s, 1983 or 84, the first email in India. But this was the work which was done in 1960s. Okay. So Ramachandran accessed those computers somehow, and he could write the algorithms for it and use computer modeling, arrive at this graph. You know, in any computer modeling, not just computer modeling, in any mathematical modeling even, you know, at least you maybe if you are aware of the news around us, we used to have different modelings to tell when the COVID peaks plateaus. Is it not? When the COVID peaks come down, different scientists and different institutions used to give different dates. Some would tell that immediately it may plateau, or it may plateau after 2 months, 3 months. Why these modelings were differing in the outputs? It was because of the input they gave. Any computer modeling requires some assumptions from the modeler's side. Assumptions. When he uses those assumptions, you get different results. Change the assumption, you get one more result. That is what I want to tell you here. These are the core regions you get in the Ramachandran plot. If the covalent radius of the groups or the atoms which are rotating and which are coming together when they get into eclipsed conformations, they come together. So how much closer they can come together, it is decided by its covalent radius. It cannot come closer than its covalent radius of the individual atoms. So if you take the covalent radius of the non-bonded atoms strictly and then plot the Ramachandran graph, you get only core areas. Only core areas. Please understand, only core areas. You get only two areas, core areas. But if somehow, at least in modeling, how this can be done in the real scenario, I'll answer this. But somehow in the modeling, at least, if we can shorten the covalent radius marginally, okay. So in your calculations of input, instead of giving a covalent radius as an input, marginally smaller covalent radius, if you feed into your computer, you get bigger regions in your Ramachandran. That means what? Many more combinations of psi and phi becomes allowed. But of course, as I told you, for this to happen, the collisions of the non-bonded atoms have to be, the effect of the collisions have to be decreased marginally. How to decrease this? One of the methods is by just shortening your covalent radius. But that's in modeling. But you may ask me a question. For a given atom in a molecule, if your hydrogen atom is there on methane or on a Rubisco protein, the covalent radius is fixed, is it not? Covalent radius is fixed. It's a physical parameter of an atom. So how can you shorten that in your real molecules? It is not possible. You cannot shorten the covalent radius, but you can do some other interactions which can marginally allow disallowed conformations. What are those interactions which will allow some disallowed conformations? That we will see in the later part of the lecture. Anyways, so you get core areas, you get margin, you get allowed areas, and you get forbidden areas. Fine. So that is what a Ramachandran plot essentially does. So now, well, I told you that computer modeling helps a lot in constructing Ramachandran plots. But for a beginner like me, computer modeling and algorithms, understanding Ramachandran plot is too much. It requires rigorous mathematics, in fact. So for simple tetrapeptides, till decapeptides, you can even construct a ball and stick model. So I've just written this. Ball and stick models provide some insight into the frequency of size or infrequencies of size. So I can construct even ball and stick models. In fact, on YouTube, there was one particular video, only one, which I saw, where he was using a ball and stick model of a tripeptide and then trying to explain the collisions, the allowed conformations, disallowed conformations. In fact, the video was not too lengthy, like my lecture, it was not lengthy. It was only for 2 minutes. So you can watch that. Just Google out G.N. Ramachandran's plot in YouTube. You'll get the 2-minute video. I can even share you the link later if you want through the group. It's a good one. He has constructed a ball and stick model, was explaining things. And almost the same result you get your computer modeling also. Okay. But what is the limitation of your ball and stick model? You can do it for only oligopeptides, maybe some 10 amino acid long peptides. Later on, it becomes clumsy. Working with them becomes clumsy. You require machine intelligence for that. That's why you use your modeling. Fine. Okay. So now just we will see some, like I told you in my previous class, many a times, in fact, most of the times, it's the primary structure which predetermines the secondary structure. Like I gave you list of some amino acids which have preferences to helices. Some have preferences to beta sheets. Some others have preferences to be at turns, loops, such things. Let us see that. Okay, that was only a empirical statement then. And is my statement substantiated by some evidence? Let us see that. Anyways, so let me just give you the correlation of these with the secondary structures. The region of the Ramachandran plot, upper left corresponds to beta sheets, lower left corresponds to helices. And there is one region in the first quadrant where both psi and phi values are positive. Psi and phi values are positive. A very small area on the plot which correspond to left-handed helix. Anyways, so now you see this. Right? This is the Ramachandran plot for polyglycine peptide. Polyglycine. What is your observation? First observation. Straightforward observation. If you look at this plot and you compare this with a plot here, yeah, plot here, or even a plot here, even this plot, fine. Of course, this is a plot with dots merged into areas, whereas this is a plot with actual dots. You can just merge these dots into areas and shade it with some color also. Just I'm given it black. So what is your first observation? Looking at this plot. I mean, I expect an answer here because at this point, correct answer from your side will be a bit encouraging. Too many dots unlike previous ones. Very good. Too many dots unlike previous ones. Good. So what does it mean conformationally? This is actually the answer. What does it, this should be the actual, what does it mean conformational? If there are too many dots or simply too many or larger area in the Ramachandran plot, what does it mean? What does it mean? Okay, I'll give you the options. You know, now students and including me have got used to MCQs type questions. Okay, we should look into the option and choose a correct one. Yes, without giving an option, somebody has answered. Good, Dinesh Kumar. It adopts different conformations. Fine. So I will just refine your answer a bit. It adopts different conformations. Very good. Very, very good. But yeah, Sarthak, you have raised hand. Why? Sarthak K. Have any doubt? Sarthak K, raised hand. Okay, maybe he's answering. Sarthak K. No problem. Fine. So if there are many more dots, one second. Yes. So if there are many more dots, it simply means that your or the peptide with a glycine backbone, polyglycine, adopts much more conformations, many more conformations basically. So, if I can answer it from the other angle, the disallowed combinations of phi and psi is less. Is it not? Much more combinations of phi and psi are allowed. So essentially, many more conformations are possible for a polyglycine rather than very strict, rigid phi and psi combinations. Phi and psi combinations are increased in their numbers. Much more conformations are possible for a polyglycine. Therefore, what happens if you get a polyglycine peptide? It is not possible to pinpoint its secondary structure. Okay, or I'm not telling a polyglycine peptide. If you get a polyglycine sequence in a protein, what is the conformation of that sequence? I told you, right? Because secondary structures are part of tertiary structures of the protein. What is the secondary structure of that sequence? It is difficult to predict. It can form an helix, it can form a beta sheet, it can become a random coil, anything. It all depends on the influence of the neighboring subunits. Okay, it influence of the neighboring subunits. And I just also want to tell one more thing at this point here. See, now, okay, I'll tell you later. Now, proline. What would be your opinion about proline's side chain offering steric hindrance? It offers higher steric hindrance or lesser steric hindrance. Proline's side chain. It is a very rigid side chain and offers a high degree of steric hindrance for rotations, basically. So you have a oligoproline residue peptide or a sequence which is oligoproline. Then, in fact, your Ramachandran plot further shrinks. There is a small accessible area for this sequence conformation. Small accessible area for this sequence further shrinks. So there is one more thing here. It's not just the proline C alpha analysis. This is the analysis of phi and psi bonds over C alpha of proline. In a large number of peptides, if you analyze psi and phi values for pre-proline residues, okay, pre-proline residue. So what happens in the pre-proline residue? You know, the rotations of this psi or the allowed rotations of this site is hugely influenced by the next amino acid side chain. Don't forget that. It is not just the side chain of the alpha carbon atom of your focus, which is important. The side chains of the neighboring alphas also determine which are the allowed rotations. So for pre-proline residues, so for pre-proline residues, the rotations become hindered. Why? Because of presence of proline next to them, which is considered to be very rigid and offers large steric hindrance. So Ramachandran plot of pre-proline residue. See, but you know what do you mean by pre-proline Ramachandran plot? It is not that in a peptide you have alternate proline, next amino acid proline, another amino acid. It's not that. If you analyze the huge database of peptides, and in all the peptides, most of the peptides at least, the pre-proline psi and phi values are very limited. Not in a single peptide, in any peptide you take, the pre-proline psi and phi values combinations are very limited. So the Ramachandran plot further shrinks, or Ramachandran plot's areas diminish. Right? So what's the point now? That you take a flexible amino acid like glycine, psi and phi, you get expanded Ramachandran plot, or much more allowed regions are appearing in the Ramachandran plot. Some regions which are almost forbidden in the regular Ramachandran plot of a general peptide is not. Okay, yeah, Dinesh Kumar, you have this. What do you mean by pre-proline? Okay, maybe I should have detailed this a bit. Pre-proline is not an amino acid, yeah. For your information, it is not the name of an amino acid. It is any amino acid which is coming previous to proline in the sequence of amino acid. Any amino acid which is coming previous to proline. Okay, that is a pre-proline residue. Oh, fine. Yeah. Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. Fine. So compare these plots for glycine. Lot of areas appear. For pre-proline Ramachandran plot, only a very small. I mean, from 10% it has now come down to some 7% of the allowed values. So that is that. So what is the take-home lesson of analyzing glycine, proline, and pre-proline residues? That the side chains of the amino acids have very large influence in telling or in determining which Cy-N-5 combinations are allowed or which Cy-N-5 combinations are disallowed. Rather, many a times what happens, since 90% of the plot is disallowed region, when we are doing a conformation analysis, instead of looking at which is allowed, we will look into which is disallowed also. Which is disallowed also. Well, this question becomes more important. Why is this combination disallowed? Of course, the obvious answer is due to steric hindrances. This is disallowed. But you know, the peptide chemistry has evolved in leaps and bounds, if I have to tell, from the time of Ramachandran. Now we are at the point of constructing artificial secondary structures. So what are these artificial secondary structures? These are the secondary structures of synthetic peptides and peptide analogs. So you can modify the side chains, or even if you can modify a backbone chemically, you can add extra atoms, you can remove some atoms, add some groups, remove some groups from the backbone or from the side chain, and you can access, please remember this, and you can access those disallowed regions in the Ramachandran plot. So these are disallowed strictly for a natural peptide. But if you are making your own secondary structure chemically, synthetically, you can access these disallowed regions. So then how is your analysis pitched? You are not going to too much concentrate on allowed regions. Rather, you are going to concentrate on how to make that disallowed region allowed. Is it not? So disallowed regions combinations of Cy-N-5, it's not that we can simply neglect them. They are still useful combinations. Once you start pole vaulting into a domain which is not in natural peptide chemistry, rather peptidomimetic chemistry. Okay. In fact, Professor Suresh Babu sir's lab has synthesized a lot of peptidomimetics by making variations in the backbone and very few with side chains variations also. But crystal structure they have also analyzed. But secondary structures, I'm not sure whether they've analyzed. Anyways, so that is done. That is there. Okay. Anyways, so another trend for consecutive amino acids, correlation in position. What does it mean? See, you pick a amino acid, some amino acid N, and see what is its allowed Cy-N-5 value. Okay, and then you do it for n+1, do it for n+2, n+3, go on doing like that. You see that if the secondary structure is regular, that means helices, beta sheets regular, then you see crowding or clustering of these dots in one region. What does that region correspond to? Yes, okay, fine. So what does that region correspond to? From that Ramachandran plot, whether it's an helix or a beta sheet, you can make up. This is the hard sphere Ramachandran, not computer modeled picture. Whereas this is the Ramachandran plot, experimental. Okay, experimental. So what's the difference? How did we arrive at an experimental Ramachandran plot? For computer model, of course, there are algorithms. You have to just give the structure of the primary sequence of the peptides. You know, these energy minimization programs, docking studies, they all give you the most stable energetically minimum conformations easily because the programs are modeled like that. Experimentally, how to construct a Ramachandran plot? Where do you get those psi and phi values from? Where do you get this psi and phi values from? You should get from some experiment, right? Some data you should get. What's the best technique to visualize the bond lengths and bond angles of a molecule? What best technique to visualize bond lengths and bond angles? Crystal structure, very good, yeah, fine. Crystal structure is the experimental tool to actually, without, if I say, I cannot tell unambiguous, but with a lot of guarantee, you can tell this is the bond angle and this is the bond length of the atoms of the molecules. So when you take the experimentally determined psi and phi angles and plot it on Ramachandran plot, you get almost a similar graph like your computer modeled graph. So what does it tell us? What does it tell? When your theory or a prediction is mirroring an experimentally obtained data, what does it tell? What does it tell? It further confirms the robustness of your theory, is it not? You can now with lot of confidence tell my modeling, what is this, my modeling here, my Ramachandran plot, my modeling, I can go ahead with this modeling even in case I don't have a X-ray data or crystallographic data of the protein I have made or I have isolated from the natural sources. Is it not? See, you isolate a new protein or a new peptide from natural source. Okay, or even if you synthesize it, probably. You can't get X-ray data of that protein always because you have to crystallize. First of all, to get X-ray data, you have to take a large amount, the substantial amount of protein has to be there. Crystallization process, it has to go through all those things. Now, for example, if you have isolated some mg of the compound from a natural source, you cannot get crystal of it. So then how to predict what is the structure of the isolated protein? You know the sequence, how to predict? Put it on the Ramachandran. Use your computer modeling, put it on the Ramachandran plot, and then see the isolated protein, what you have got is a helix or a beta sheet, or do all those analysis. Fine. So that is what. So now, okay. So usually, if the percentage of amino acid is more than 88% in the allowed region of the protein model, okay, please remember, of course, a few experts place it at 90%, but an average accepted value is about 88%. So if the percentage of an amino acid is more than 88% in the allowed region of the model, then it is good for in silico studies. So now, for example, if 88% of the amino acids are falling in this region, so you can tell the protein I have in my hand is a beta sheet. If it is here, you can tell it's an alpha helix, like that. And these secondary structures are very important for further in vitro studies or in silico studies to know what is its interaction with the receptors, all those things. A lot of works open with knowing the secondary structure actually. Okay, fine. Now, let us come to the correlation of the map with the secondary structures. And please remember which are the three important secondary structures, basic fundamental secondary structures, helices, sheets, turns. Fine. So for a right-handed helix, this is the allowed values of phi and psi. I'm not telling it is always minus 57 degree phi, always strictly for all amino acids in an helix around this value. Plus or minus some 5-10% deviation is always allowed around this value, and this is the minus. So what is the point here? All right-handed helix have both psi and phi values in their negative values, in their negative range. Whereas a left-handed helix has a positive plus 57 degree and plus 47 degree, almost mirroring your right-handed alpha helix. Minus 57, minus 47. For a left-handed alpha helix, plus 57, plus 47. Okay. And where is your left-handed helix in your Ramachandran plot? Here, very small region in the Ramachandran plot, where the values of psi and this is the first quadrant, both are positive. Again, these are the allowed values. One more region which my maps here, which I have downloaded, doesn't tell you, is about collagen. There is a small region here. Sorry, I could not show you that diagram. Just upper right of your beta sheet, small region which corresponds to collagen structure. And what is the collagen structure? It is a triple helix structure. Triple helix. Collagen structure is a triple helix. In fact, Ramachandran is credited with discovering the structure of collagen, which is a triple helix. In fact, the triple helix became so famous when Ramachandran gave its structure. But you know, I mean, how chemistry has helped Ramachandran. He is a crystallographer, physicist, of course. But he had all the knowledge of crystallography, the modeling, but he did not have the knowledge of isolating molecules and synthesizing molecules. After all, finally, he wanted to work on molecules, a collagen. So, you know, where he got that collagen from? He got it from a neighboring institute when he was in Madras, which is Central Leather Research Institute, CLRI in Chennai. Okay. So they provided him a very pure sample of collagen, because you know the collagen occurs in leathers, tendons, such things, animal tissues. They provide a very pure sample of collagen. So even CLRI is very proud of its participation in a groundbreaking work with Ramachandran. Therefore, of course, I was listening to Professor Balram's lecture on Ramachandran plot the other day. He mentioned one thing. In CLRI, there is a main auditorium in CLRI. You know the name of that auditorium? Usually our auditoriums everywhere is named after a person. Most of the time those persons are politicians or some celebrities. But the CLRI's auditorium's name is Triple Helix. Okay. And Professor Balram commented that maybe that is the only building, auditorium or building in the entire nation which carries a name of a structure of a molecule. Triple helix. Yes. So these are all the secondary structures and their corresponding phi and psi values. Anyways, so now let us look into some real examples. All these things we are telling, you can predict the structure, you can model the structures, these things. Protein called cytochrome C. You know where the cytochrome C occurs? Where cytochrome C occurs? It occurs in mitochondria. It is a metalloprotein which is part of electron transport system. Okay, so that is your cytochrome C. And of course, I have given the name, but look at the clustering of the combinations of psi and phi. So where would you expect these clusters to be? Correlating with which secondary structure from the Ramachandran plot? This cluster. Where do you expect this cluster to be? Right-handed helix. Is it not? See the region here. See the region here. Right-handed helix. What is the experimentally determined structure of cytochrome C? Right-handed helix, alpha helix. But you can always make one more observations. Why are there? Of course, this is the Ramachandran plot of cytochrome C. So why are there points outside this alpha helix region also? That's what I told. All points will not lie in the actual region you are expecting. About 90%, 88% correlation is sufficient to take the call and tell whether what type of secondary structure the given protein is. There are outliners in the graph. These points are outliners. There are a single point in yes, okay, fine. So this is an alpha helical protein. Now, this is one more interesting protein. This is pyruvate kinase, and pyruvate kinase is an enzyme, which is the enzyme performs the last step of glycolysis. Is it not? Phosphorylation of pyruvate. So looking at the dots clustering, what type of secondary structure can you predict? What type of secondary structure can you predict for pyruvate kinase? Answers? We have spoken enough of the modeling part. Now it's the application part. What type of secondary structure you can predict? Yes. It lies in beta sheet and right-handed helix. Very good. Yeah. It lies in beta sheet and a right-handed helix. Now, have we not encountered a problem which is contradicting our predictions? How can now a peptide can be in helix and a beta sheet? Not possible, right? Anyways, now I'll just give you the actual structure and then you will understand that yourself. Although it is beta sheet and right-handed alpha helix, yes, I got an answer. Okay, thanks. Okay, you have one more class at 11 o'clock. I was told that I can extend my class on Saturdays. Pasha sir is engaging at 11 o'clock. It is fine. I just give me some 5 minutes time. So it's not possible, right? It can be beta sheet and alpha helix both. Actual clustering is on the right-handed helix side. So the probability is right-handed helix. More probability is a right-handed helix. But you look at the actual diagram of, yes. So this is the ribbon diagram of pyruvate kinase. So what are these ribbon diagrams? Ribbon diagrams are a schematic representation of the three-dimensional structure of a protein. The helices are given by coils. Beta sheets are given by arrow marks. Okay, so these are the ribbon diagram. Now you see, what did I tell? That secondary structure is a subunit of a tertiary structure. Now our pyruvate kinase is a big protein which has a tertiary structure, and a part of the tertiary structure is alpha helix, and a part of the tertiary structure is beta sheet. Since there are more helices, more points corresponding to alpha helix. Of course, there are beta sheets. Therefore, you get points on your plot corresponding to beta sheets points. Okay, so that is how. Fine. Anyways, since students are telling me to stop here, I can stop here. And if given one more opportunity, I don't think so, I can explain you a bit on beta sheets and coils. Fine. So I'll just stop here. Anyways, you can ask questions before I stop. I'm just stopping because you need to attend next class. That's why. Otherwise, I could have gone for I could have extended for another 15 minutes. It's okay, no problem. Yes. I hope we can have some interactions. Students can ask questions if you want.
Yeah, I think we can have, sir, 1 or 2 questions.
Yes. You can send your questions in chat also, like you have been sending. I mean, none of the students want to
So,
Speak on mic.
yes, sir.
Happy typing.
Yeah, yes, it's age of SMS. sir.
Age of SMS. Okay. It's the age of SMS. Okay. Yeah. Any questions? Of course, what are the things I have told about Ramachandran plot now is essentially the basic of it, because I have pitched my lecture to the MSc pursuing students. It is only the entry points into the Ramachandran plot. It's a huge discipline of study, Ramachandran plot, and it is interlinked to many other domains of study: bioinformatics, biochemistry, crystallography. Lot of things are interlinked. Yes. Okay. So I think students are not coming up with questions. Fine. Yes, sir. Vishwajit, sir.
Yeah, I think, sir, I'll just add one point for the students' sake. There is a documentary done by ISER Pune recently in month of February, talking about the trials and triumphs of G.N. Ramachandran's plot, how he came up with that, and many eminent scientists across the world, including our own scientists in India, has talked about what are the difficulties he faced, how he did. I think there are many documentaries. This is one such has came in a month of February, done by ISER Pune. If you are interested, you can look into that more.
Yeah, if possible, you please share that link, sir.
Yeah, I'll do, sir. No
With
problem.
me as well. With me as well. Okay.
Sure. It's called Trials and Triumphs of G.N. Ramachandran's plot.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
No, I'll
Yeah,
definitely.
I'll share.
I'll watch it. Okay, sir. So I can end here, sir. Vishwajit, sir.
Yeah, I think, sir, we'll just end our discussion here, and then we hope that you come and give a lecture in person in our department, because you have been giving us Zoom lectures and you are not being able to come. So we'll just close the lecture, and I'll ask students to join for Pasha sir's class.
Yeah.
Sir, you can end the meeting because you have the host, right? So you can end the meeting and students can join.
Yeah, Ganga Paresh, you are there as a participant. Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. I did not expect you.
Yeah, that's fine, sir.
Yeah, because it was meant for organic chemistry people.
No, today
So
you joined, so
you
I also joined.
trespassed. You are trespassed, madam. It was for organic chemistry. No, and I was only joking.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.